I won $50 million and rushed home to tell my wife. But when I stepped through the back door, I heard her voice in the kitchen, low, intimate, laughing with someone. Then she said the words that stopped my heart cold. That grease monkey thinks fixing cars makes him a man. Drain him dry, then we disappear. The voice that answered her belonged to my own brother. My blood turned to ice. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Please, leave a comment and share this story. If you were in my shoes, what would you do after hearing those words from the two people you trusted most? Important note: this is a fictional story created for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental. However, the messages about trust, betrayal, and the true meaning of family carry profound, real-world values. I have always believed that a man is measured by what he builds with his hands, not by the size of his bank account or the softness of his palms, but by what he creates from nothing and passes down to those he loves. My name is Dean Calloway, and for 57 years, that belief has been the engine driving everything I do. I am a mechanic. Third generation. My grandfather, Earl Calloway, opened our shop on Abercorn Street in Savannah, Georgia, back in 1962. He built it with borrowed money and borrowed tools, working 18-hour days until his hands were so stiff he could barely close them around a wrench. My father, Dale, took over in '84 and ran it until a stroke forced him into retirement. And in 1991, at 22 years old, I stepped behind the counter of Calloway & Sons and made it mine. 35 years later, that shop is still standing. Same location, same sign, same values. We fix what is broken. We do honest work for honest pay. And we never, not once, cut corners or lied to a customer about what their car needed. That philosophy cost me some profit over the years. Could have upsold parts, could have invented problems that did not exist. Plenty of shops do. But my grandfather taught me that reputation outlasts revenue. And he was right. In Savannah, when people need their car fixed, they come to Calloway & Sons. 3 generations of trust, built one oil change at a time. My hands tell you everything about my life. They are scarred across every knuckle. The right index finger bends slightly wrong from a timing chain accident in 2003. Permanent grease lives under my fingernails, the kind that no amount of scrubbing with that orange pumice soap can fully remove. Calluses thick as shoe leather cover my palms from decades of gripping wrenches and prying stubborn bolts. Vanessa used to say I had working man hands, and she would smile when she said it. At least I thought it was a smile. I married Vanessa 30 years ago, back when I still thought love was something you earned through loyalty and hard work. She was beautiful. Dark hair, sharp eyes, the kind of woman who turned heads at the Piggly Wiggly and knew it. She had come to the shop with a '93 Honda Civic that was burning oil, and I fixed it for cost because I could not stop staring at her. That was the beginning of everything. Or maybe it was the beginning of nothing real, and I was just too foolish to know the difference. We had a good life. Or I thought we did. A house in Ardsley Park, with a wraparound porch and azaleas in the front yard. Sunday dinners after church. Vacations to Tybee Island every summer. The kind of life that looks ordinary from the outside but feels like everything when you are living it. And then there is Tyler, my son, 24 years old now. He came home 8 months ago from his second deployment with the Marines, quieter than when he left, carrying something behind his eyes that he does not talk about much. Post-traumatic stress, the doctors said. Mild, manageable, but real. He started working at the shop the week after he got back. Said he needed something familiar, something that made sense, something that smelled like home. Watching him learn the trade, watching his hands get calloused and stained the same way mine did, the same way my father's did. That was the proudest I have felt in years. Calloway & Sons. The sign was not just a name anymore. It was a promise. A legacy. 3 generations deep and counting. I had no idea that everything I believed about my family was built on a cracked foundation. That the woman sleeping beside me for 3 decades had been performing the role of wife the way a mechanic follows a manual. Technically correct, but with no love for the machine. And that my own brother, the one I had protected and provided for since we were boys, had been the one helping her plan my destruction. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to the beginning. To the Thursday afternoon that changed everything. To a scratch-off ticket, a phone call, and the moment my life split into before and after. I did not know it yet. But that ordinary Thursday was the last day I would ever be the man I thought I was. That Thursday started like any other. I was underneath a 2019 Ford F-150, replacing a rusted exhaust manifold for a regular named Curtis Wheeler, when Tyler called out from the front counter that he was making a parts run to O'Reilly. I slid out from under the truck, wiped my hands on a shop rag, and told him to grab me a sweet tea on the way back. Just an ordinary afternoon. Savannah heat pressing through the bay doors like a warm hand on your chest. The smell of motor oil and magnolia mixing in the air the way it always does in summer. Around 4:30, I cleaned up and headed out. Took my usual route down Victory Drive. Windows down. Radio playing something old and country. I stopped at Parker's, the convenience store on the corner, where I had been buying gas and coffee for 15 years. Pam behind the register knew my order, without asking. Large coffee, black, and a pack of peppermint gum. But that day, something made me pause at the lottery display. I am not a gambling man. Never have been. My father used to say the lottery was a tax on people who could not do math. But the scratch-off tickets were sitting there behind the glass, and one of them caught my eye. Gold lettering. $50 million. Spectacular. $5. I do not know why I bought it. Maybe it was Tyler joking last week that someone had to win eventually. Maybe it was just a feeling, the kind you cannot explain, but cannot ignore either. I scratched it in my truck with a quarter from the cup holder. The first number matched. Then the second. Then the third. By the time I scratched the final panel, my hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the coin. I sat there staring at the ticket, reading the numbers over and over, convinced I was misunderstanding something. This did not happen to men like me. This happened to people on television, people in other states, other lives. I called the number on the back of the ticket. My voice did not sound like my own when I spoke to the woman at the Georgia Lottery Commission. She asked me to read the numbers. I did. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Sir, I need you to keep that ticket in a safe place. You are looking at a $50 million winner. $50 million. The words did not fit in my mouth. Did not fit in my truck, or my life, or anything I understood about the world. I sat in that Parker's parking lot for 20 minutes, engine off, staring at my hands on the steering wheel. These hands, grease-stained, scarred, calloused. The hands of a mechanic who had never earned more than $90,000 in his best year. And now they were holding a piece of cardboard worth $50 million. I drove home in a daze. The streets of Savannah scrolled past like a movie I was watching instead of living. Spanish moss hanging from the oaks on Abercorn looked different somehow. Everything looked different. Like the world had shifted 2 inches to the left while I was not looking. Vanessa was in the kitchen when I walked through the door. She was making her shrimp and grits, the recipe she got from her grandmother. The house smelled like butter and garlic and home. She looked up when I came in, smiled that familiar smile. "You are home early. Everything okay?" I sat down at the kitchen table. Put the ticket on the surface between us. My hands were still trembling. "Vanessa, I need you to sit down." She looked at my face, then at the ticket. Picked it up. Read it once, twice, 3 times. Her eyes went wide. Her hand covered her mouth. And then she screamed. Not a scream of fear. A scream of something else entirely. Joy. Or what I believed was joy. "Dean. Dean. Is this real? $50 million? Every penny, I said. It is real. I already called. It is real. She threw her arms around me, and I held her, breathing in her perfume mixed with the smell of garlic from the stove. She was shaking too, or maybe that was still me. We stood there in our kitchen, two people who had lived modestly for 30 years, trying to comprehend a number that did not belong in our world. We stayed up late that night, sitting on the porch with sweet tea that turned into bourbon around 9 o'clock, talking about what this meant. The shop. I could finally build that showroom I had been planning for years. Tyler. I could set up a trust fund for him, make sure he never had to worry. Ray, my brother out in Los Angeles chasing whatever dream he was chasing this year. Maybe I could finally help him get on his feet. I want to announce it at the showroom grand opening, I told her. 2 weeks from Saturday. Make it a celebration of the shop, the family, the future, everything together. Vanessa squeezed my hand. Her fingers were cool against my warm skin. That is perfect, baby. Absolutely perfect. Everyone will be there. It will be beautiful. She kissed me then, soft and lingering. And I believed it. Believed every second of it. 30 years of trust will do that to a man. It makes you blind in the most dangerous way possible, because you do not even know your eyes are closed. Later that night, after Vanessa had gone upstairs and I was locking up the house, I thought I heard her voice from the bedroom. Low. Quiet. Like she was on the phone. I caught a fragment through the half-closed door. It is happening. 50 million. Call me tomorrow. I figured she was telling her sister in Atlanta. Excited. Unable to keep the secret until morning. Why would I think anything else? After 30 years, trust was not something I questioned. It was like gravity. Invisible. Constant. Holding everything in place. I went to bed that night feeling like the luckiest man in Georgia. My wife beside me, my son down the hall, my shop waiting for me in the morning. $50 million about to change everything for the better. I had no idea that the phone call I half heard was not to her sister. That the excitement in her voice was not for our future together, and that the person on the other end of that line was already calculating how to take everything I had, everything I was, and disappear with it into the night. 2 days later, on a Saturday afternoon, I came home early. That is the detail that haunts me. Not the words I overheard, not the betrayal itself, but the sheer randomness of it. If Tommy Reeves had not canceled his 3 o'clock transmission rebuild, I would have stayed at the shop until 6 like always. I would have come home to dinner on the table, and my wife smiling, and the lie holding together for 2 more weeks until they were ready to execute their plan. Sometimes I think about that, how the truth hung on something as small as a canceled appointment. I pulled into the driveway around 2:45. Vanessa's car was there, which was normal for a Saturday. What was not normal was the back door being unlocked. Vanessa always locked it. She was particular about that. Had been ever since somebody broke into the Hendersons' place 3 streets over last spring. I came in through the mudroom, still wearing my work boots, hands still carrying the smell of transmission fluid from the morning's jobs. The house was cool, air conditioning humming against the Georgia heat outside. I could hear Vanessa's voice coming from the kitchen. She was laughing. That low, intimate kind of laugh that I had not heard directed at me in years, though I had not let myself think about what that meant until now. I stopped in the hallway. Not because I suspected anything. Not yet. I stopped because something in her tone made me feel like I was intruding on a private moment in my own home. And then I heard the other voice, coming through the phone speaker, clear as daylight in the quiet house. Ray's voice. My brother's voice. Baby, we are so close. 2 more weeks, and we are free. Costa Rica. Just like we planned. Vanessa laughed again. That same warm conspiratorial sound. I cannot wait. 30 years of this, Ray. 30 years of watching him come home smelling like a garage. His hands black with grease every single night. You know he does not even notice anymore? He thinks I do not mind. Thinks I am proud of his honest work. She said those last two words like they tasted rotten in her mouth. Honest work. You have been patient, baby. Ray's voice was smooth, confident. The same charm he had used his whole life to get what he wanted without earning it. 2 more weeks. He announces the money at that little grand opening party. We get him to set up the trust. And then we drain every last cent. By the time he figures it out, we will be on a beach watching the sunset with $50 million and no forwarding address. Drain him dry. Vanessa's voice was cold now. Every trace of warmth gone. That grease monkey thinks fixing cars makes him a man. He has no idea what is coming. 7 years I've been waiting for this, Ray. 7 years of pretending. 7 years. The number hit me like a wrench to the temple. 7 years. Tyler was deployed for his first tour 7 years ago. That was when I started traveling more for parts conventions, leaving Vanessa alone for weekends at a time. 7 years my wife had been with my brother behind my back. 7 years of holidays and anniversaries and Sunday dinners, and I love yous that meant nothing. Less than nothing. But it was what came next that truly broke me. The words that took a sledgehammer to the foundation of everything I thought I knew about my life. Ray's voice turned casual, almost careless. And what about Tyler? He is going to be confused when his mama disappears. Should we worry about him? Vanessa made a sound. Dismissive. Almost cruel. Tyler will be fine. He is just like his father. Trusting. Naive. He will cling to Dean, and they will figure it out together. Let them bond over their little garage. Ray laughed. His father. That is rich. You mean, he will cling to the man he thinks is his father. The hallway tilted. The walls bent inward. I put my hand against the doorframe to keep myself upright, and I could feel the grain of the wood under my greasy fingertips, that one physical detail somehow more real than anything else in that moment. Vanessa's voice came back. Lighter now. Amused. Tyler will never know you are his real father, Ray. He never needs to. Let Dean keep playing daddy to a kid that is not even his. It is the one thing that makes him feel important. I could not breathe. Could not move. Could not process what my ears were delivering to my brain. My son. Tyler. The boy I had held minutes after he was born, whose first word had been Dada, who I had taught to ride a bike and throw a ball and rebuild a carburetor. The young man who went to war and came home broken and chose my shop, my world, my hands to help him heal. Not mine. The words kept coming from the kitchen, but I could no longer hear them. There was a roaring in my ears, a sound like an engine running without oil, metal grinding on metal, something destroying itself from the inside. My legs moved backward of their own accord. 1 step. 2 steps. Back through the mudroom. Back through the door. I had walked in 60 seconds ago, as one man, and was now walking out as someone else, entirely. I made it to my truck, sat behind the wheel, looked down at my hands, still stained with transmission fluid, still calloused, still scarred. The same hands that had held my son. My son. These hands had fixed 10,000 broken machines in 35 years. But there was no tool in my shop, no wrench or socket or diagnostic scanner that could fix what had just broken inside me. The afternoon sun beat through the windshield. A cardinal sang in the magnolia tree beside the driveway. Inside the house, my wife was still laughing with my brother, planning to steal my money, my business, my life. And somewhere across town, my son, the boy who called me Dad, who had my last name and my calloused hands and my love for engines, did not know that everything he believed about himself was a lie. I sat there for 3 minutes that felt like 3 hours. Then I put the truck in reverse, backed out of the driveway, and drove away before they could hear the engine. I did not know where I was going. I just knew I could not stay in that house for 1 more second without either screaming or breaking something that could not be put back together. I drove without direction. Down Abercorn, past the shop, past the square where tourists took photos of fountains they would forget by next week. past Forsyth Park where I used to push Tyler on the swings when he was 4 years old. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white underneath the grease stains. And I realized I was shaking. Not trembling. Shaking. The kind of full-body vibration that comes when your nervous system cannot decide between fight and collapse, so it chooses both at once. I pulled into the parking lot behind the old shrimp dock on Thunderbolt. Killed the engine, sat there staring at the marsh grass bending in the afternoon breeze, the tidal creek catching sunlight, egrets standing still as statues in the shallow water. The world was peaceful. Unbearably peaceful. Completely indifferent to the fact that mine had just been gutted like a fish. My mind kept looping, playing the words over and over on a reel that would not stop turning. Grease monkey. Drain him dry. 7 years. Tyler will never know. You are his real father. 7 years. I started counting backward. Tyler's first deployment was 2017. I remember driving him to the bus that morning at 4 a.m. Vanessa crying on the porch, waving goodbye. Had she been relieved? Had she watched our son leave for a war zone and felt freedom instead of fear? Had Ray been waiting somewhere, watching the same bus pull away, knowing the boy inside was his? I thought about Christmas 2019. Tyler home on leave. Thinner. Quieter. We sat in the living room opening presents. Vanessa in her robe on the couch. Ray calling from Los Angeles on speakerphone to wish everyone happy holidays. Had they spoken privately that night? Had she slipped into the bathroom after I fell asleep and whispered to him? While our son, their son, slept down the hall with nightmares from Helmand? Every memory was contaminated now. Every single one. Like discovering oil in the coolant system, you cannot just fix the leak. You have to flush the entire engine, because the contamination has reached everywhere. I thought about my brother, Raymond Calloway. 8 years younger, the charming one, the handsome one, the one who hated grease under his fingernails and swore he would never work in that shop. I remembered teaching him to change oil when he was 12, how he wiped his hands every 30 seconds with disgust on his face while I laughed and told him he would get used to it. He never did. Ray left Savannah at 21. Said he was going to Los Angeles to be an actor. Hollywood, baby, he had said, throwing his bag in the trunk of the used Mustang I helped him buy. I'm going to be somebody. I gave him $3,000 from my savings that day. Vanessa and I had been married 2 years. Tyler was not even a thought yet. And I believed in my little brother the way you believe in sunrise. Unconditionally. He never became an actor. Drifted between bartending and personal training and real estate licensing courses he never finished. Every few years he would call needing money, and I would send it. Every Christmas he would promise to visit and then cancel at the last minute. I made excuses for him. Told myself he was finding his way. Told Tyler that Uncle Ray was an adventurer, a free spirit, someone who lived differently, but loved us all the same. What a fool I was. I thought about Vanessa. Tried to pinpoint when it started to turn. Was there a moment, a day where she looked at me and decided I was not enough? Or had it always been there, some quiet dissatisfaction that grew like rust on a frame, invisible until it ate through the metal completely? I remembered signs I had ignored. The way she started going to the gym 3 times a week, about 7 years ago. The new perfume she bought for herself, that I did not recognize. How she suddenly wanted a nicer phone. Kept it angled away from me when she texted. The trip to visit her college friend in Charleston that lasted 4 days instead of 2. Had Ray been in Charleston that weekend? Had they been together while I watched football with Tyler and thought nothing of it? The time Vanessa said I should invite Ray for Thanksgiving, how she had insisted, and I thought she was being generous to my family. The way Ray looked at her across the table that year, and I told myself it was admiration for his brother's wife. The way she laughed at his jokes, touched his arm when she passed the sweet potatoes. And I felt grateful that my wife and brother got along so well. Grateful. The word made me want to vomit. And Tyler. God, Tyler. I looked at my hands on the steering wheel and tried to remember the first time I held him. November 3rd, 2001. 6 pounds 11 ounces. A full head of dark hair and lungs that could shake the walls. The nurse placed him in my arms and I cried. Told myself I would protect this boy with everything I had. Build him a life. Teach him what it means to be a man. 24 years of that. Teaching him to ride a bike on the street in front of our house. Coaching his little league team. Staying up until 2 a.m. Helping him with algebra. He hated. The phone call when he told me he had enlisted, and the terror that lived in my chest for 2 deployments. The night he came home and could not sleep, and I sat with him in the dark garage, not talking, just being there. Handing him a wrench because sometimes your hands need something to hold on to when your mind is falling apart. Was any of that a lie? No. I rejected the thought immediately. Tyler was my son. I raised him. I formed him. I was there for every skinned knee, and every nightmare and every first day of school. Whatever Ray contributed to his biology, he contributed nothing else. A donation is not a father. Presence is. But the doubt crept in anyway. Like water through a cracked gasket. You think you sealed it, but it finds a way. I sat at that shrimp dock until the sun started dropping toward the marsh, painting everything gold and pink. The shaking had stopped. Something else had replaced it. Something colder. Harder. The same feeling I get when I open a hood and see catastrophic damage, when the engine is beyond saving and you know the only option is to strip it down and rebuild from scratch. I was not going to cry. Not yet. Maybe not ever about this. I was not going to confront them in a rage and give them the chance to spin it, to manipulate, to make me look like the unhinged, jealous husband while they played innocent. I was not going to warn them. I was a mechanic. When something was broken beyond repair, I did not scream at it. I diagnosed the problem. I gathered my tools, and I fixed it. Or I replaced it entirely. They wanted to drain me dry. Fine. Let them think they were winning. Let them believe the plan was working. That the fool mechanic was blind and trusting and easy. Let them count down to that grand opening, like it was their payday. They had no idea it was going to be their judgment day. I started the truck. Pulled out of the shrimp dock lot. Headed toward Thunderbolt, toward Hank Morrison's house. The one man in this world I trusted completely. The one man who had never once lied to me in 30 years of friendship. It was time to build a plan. And unlike my marriage, this one would be built on solid ground. Hank Morrison opened his front door at 6:15 on a Sunday morning. Still in his undershirt and pajama pants. A cup of coffee already in his hand, like he had been expecting trouble. One look at my face and he stepped aside without asking a single question. That is the thing about a man who has known you for 30 years and never once let you down. He reads you like a diagnostic code. Sees the misfire before you even describe the symptom. I sat at his kitchen table, the same table where we had played cards every other Friday for 2 decades, and I told him everything. Every word I had overheard. Vanessa and Ray. The 7 years. Costa Rica. Drain him dry. And Tyler. I told him about Tyler last, because saying it out loud made it real in a way that thinking it alone in my truck had not. Hank did not interrupt. Did not ask me to repeat anything. He sat across from me, his jaw tightening with every sentence, his coffee growing cold in his hands. When I finished, the silence lasted a long time. The only sound was the ceiling fan clicking overhead and a mockingbird singing in the live oak outside his window. Then Hank said one word. Quietly. With more venom than I had ever heard from him in 30 years. Ray. He stood up. Paced to the kitchen window. Stared out at his backyard where 3 project cars sat under tarps. His hands were shaking. Hank Morrison, who I had seen calmly handle bar fights and engine fires, and 100 crises without blinking, was shaking with rage on my behalf. I never trusted him, Hank said, still facing the window. Not once. You know that. Every time he came back to Savannah with his smile and his stories and his empty pockets, I told you something was off about that boy. You said he was family. Said blood was blood. I know what I said. Hank turned around. And Vanessa. 30 years, Dean. 30 years you gave that woman everything. He stopped himself. Took a breath. What do you need? I need to think. I need a plan. And I need to not do something stupid that gives them a way out. Hank nodded slowly. So we are not driving over there right now. No, we are not. Good. Because I was about to suggest it, and I am glad you are smarter than me right now. He sat back down, refilled his coffee, poured one for me. What about Tyler? Tyler does not know yet. I cannot tell him. Not now. Not while he is living in that house with her. Not while Ray is coming to town in a few days. If Tyler finds out and confronts either of them, it could get dangerous. Ray is desperate. Desperate men do ugly things. Hank met my eyes. You are protecting your boy. He is my boy. I said it without hesitation. Whatever biology says, he is mine. Hank nodded once. Firm. Damn right he is. Monday morning at 8 o'clock, I was sitting across from Carl Pittman in his office on Drayton Street, downtown Savannah. Carl was a lean man in his mid-40s with wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of deliberate calm that comes from spending 20 years untangling other people's worst days. I had used him before for business contracts and a property dispute with a neighbor. Now I needed him for something far uglier. I told him the same story I had told Hank. Carl listened with a legal pad in front of him, pen moving occasionally, face revealing nothing until I finished. First, the money. Carl's voice was precise, measured. Who knows about the lottery winnings? Me, Vanessa, and now you and Hank. I have not told Tyler. Have not claimed it publicly yet. Good. In Georgia, lottery winnings during marriage can be subject to equitable distribution in divorce. But since you have not deposited it into joint accounts, have not commingled it with marital assets, and purchased the ticket with your own personal funds, we have a strong argument for separate property classification. We need to establish that immediately. Irrevocable trust. Sole beneficiary. He wrote for several seconds, then looked up. Second, your prenuptial agreement. You mentioned you have one. Vanessa's father insisted on it. 30 years ago. I never thought about it again. Carl allowed himself a small smile. That prenup has a standard infidelity clause. If either party engages in extramarital relations, they forfeit claims to alimony and a significant portion of marital assets. With the evidence you have, Vanessa walks away with almost nothing. I nodded. What about the shop? Callaway and Sons is in your name. Premarital asset, inherited from your father. She has no claim. However, Carl paused, his pen tapping the pad. I need to bring something to your attention. I ran preliminary asset checks this morning after you called. There are 3 loans totaling approximately $500,000 taken out against business collateral in the past 2 years. Signed by what appears to be your signature. My stomach dropped. I did not sign any loans. I suspected as much. Carl pulled a folder from his desk, opened it, slid 3 documents across to me. I looked at the signatures. They were close, very close. But the R in Callaway was wrong. The loop was too tight, too controlled. My R had a wild sweep to it from decades of signing invoices fast. Ray, I said, almost certainly. Loan fraud. Forgery. These are felonies, Dean. Combined with the conspiracy to steal the lottery winnings, your brother is looking at serious prison time if you choose to pursue charges. I stared at those forged signatures. $500,000. My brother had not just stolen my wife and claimed my son. He had been draining my business for 2 years, right under my nose, using my name, my reputation, my credit to fund whatever hole he had dug for himself. What kind of hole needs $500,000? I asked. Carl hesitated. Based on the loan structures and dispersal patterns, this money went somewhere fast. Gambling debts would be my guess. Someone who needed large sums quickly and could not go through traditional channels. The picture was becoming clearer. Ray was not just a con man. He was a desperate one, cornered, running from something or someone who wanted their money back, and he had decided that his brother's lottery win was his escape hatch. I leaned back in my chair. The grand opening is in 12 days. They are expecting me to announce the money there. I want to expose them at that event. In front of everyone. Carl studied me. That is a dramatic choice. Are you certain? They plan to humiliate me in private. To steal from me in the dark. I want to give them the truth in the light. In front of the community that knows me. The people I have built things for. The customers who trust my name. Carl nodded slowly. Then we need to move fast. Surveillance equipment at the shop and home. Document everything between now and the event. The more evidence we collect, the more airtight the case becomes. I will coordinate with a financial forensic specialist on the loan fraud. And Dean. He leaned forward. Do not tip them off. Not a word. Not a change in behavior. Can you do that? I looked down at my hands resting on his desk. Scarred. Stained. Steady now. I have been fixing things my whole life, Carl. I can hold a wrench steady while everything around me shakes. 12 more days of pretending will not break me. What will break them will be worth the wait. Tuesday morning. 5 a.m. The shop was dark and quiet, in the way it only ever is before anyone arrives. That particular silence of a place built for noise, lifts frozen mid-height, tools hanging still on their pegboards, the faint chemical perfume of brake cleaner and motor oil lingering in the cool air. I unlocked the bay doors, and Hank followed me in carrying a duffel bag from his truck. Inside were 4 cameras, no bigger than matchboxes, and 2 audio recorders the size of shirt buttons. Carl had recommended a security specialist who set us up with equipment that would hold up in court. Professional grade. Admissible. I knew this shop better than I knew my own body. Every conduit, every junction box, every blind spot. My grandfather wired the original electrical. My father expanded it. I rewired the whole building in 2008. When we upgraded the lifts, there was not a single inch of Callaway and Sons that my hands had not touched at some point in 35 years. That knowledge made the installation fast. Camera 1 went inside the smoke detector housing in the back office, angled toward the desk where Vanessa did bookkeeping every Wednesday and Friday. Camera 2 in the supply closet overlooking the office door. Audio recorder 1 behind the filing cabinet. Audio recorder 2 inside the light fixture above the desk. Hank handled the wiring while I positioned angles, tested sight lines, ran the feed to a secure laptop Carl had provided. By 6:30, everything was operational, hidden in plain sight inside a building I built with my own hands. The irony was not lost on me. The shop my grandfather opened in '62, the shop that represented everything good and honest about the Callaway name, was now a trap. A machine designed to catch the people trying to destroy it. Tyler arrived at 7 like always. We worked side by side all morning on a Chevy Tahoe with a blown head gasket. He talked about Jolene. Said he was thinking about asking her to move in. Asked my opinion about commitment. About how you know when someone is real. I answered him honestly, because the lies were not mine. I told him that real shows up every day, even when it is hard. That real does not perform. Real just is. He smiled and said, like you and Mom, right? 30 years. That is the blueprint. I nodded and changed the subject to torque specifications. The first recording came Wednesday afternoon. My phone buzzed at 2:47 while I was under a Honda Accord. I waited until Tyler left for a parts pickup, then sat in my truck with earbuds and pressed play. Vanessa's voice, clear and businesslike. The offshore account is set up in Grand Cayman. Marissa helped me through her contact in Nassau. Once Dean announces the money, and we get him to transfer into the family trust, I route it through 3 shell companies and into the Cayman account. By the time anyone notices, it is gone. Untraceable. Ray's voice impressed. You have been busy. I have had 7 years to plan this, Ray. You think I spent all that time just waiting? I have been studying, watching financial crime documentaries, reading about offshore banking, learning what works and what gets people caught. We are not getting caught. My hands were steady as I listened. That surprised me. I expected rage, expected the shaking to come back, but there was something else instead. A cold clarity. The way you feel when you finally diagnose an intermittent problem that has been plaguing a car for months. The misfire identified. The cause located. Now, you just need to fix it. I saved the recording. Documented the timestamp. Sent it to Carl. The second recording arrived Thursday morning at 10:15. This one was different. Ray's voice had changed. Gone was the smooth confidence, the casual charm. He sounded scared. Genuinely scared. Vanessa, I need to talk to you about something. About why we cannot afford to wait much longer than 2 weeks. What do you mean? I owe money. Ray's voice tightened. Serious money. To a man named Big Vic, out of Jacksonville. $500,000. I borrowed it 18 months ago, thinking I could flip it through a sportsbook connection. It went bad. Very bad. Silence from Vanessa. Then, cold. How much do you owe him exactly? 500. Plus interest that keeps climbing. He gave me 30 days. 3 weeks ago. That means I have about 11 days left, Vanessa. 11 days before his people come looking for me. And these people do not send lawyers. They do not file lawsuits. They break things. Legs. Arms. Worse. I heard Vanessa exhale. A long, controlled breath. Not fear. Calculation. Then we stay on schedule. Dean announces at the grand opening. We move fast after that. You get your money to Big Vic within a week of the transfer. And if something goes wrong, if Dean gets suspicious? Ray's voice was rising. If he figures it out before the party, he will not. Vanessa's voice was flat, absolute. Dean trusts me completely. He is a simple man, Ray. He fixes cars. He comes home. He eats dinner. He goes to sleep. He does not think beyond what his hands can touch. That is what makes him so easy. So easy. Simple man. Does not think beyond what his hands can touch. I sat in my truck and let those words settle into me like sediment in an oil pan. She had reduced my entire existence to a caricature, a simple creature of routine and labor, too dull to see what was happening under his own roof. And maybe she was right about the last 30 years. Maybe I had been that man. Trusting. Routine. Predictable. But not anymore. I saved the second recording. Documented it. Sent it to Carl with a note. Ray owes a dangerous bookmaker named Big Vic out of Jacksonville. $500,000. 11 days remaining on his deadline. This explains the urgency and the forged loans. Carl responded within 10 minutes. This changes the risk profile. Ray is not just a con man. He is a cornered animal. We need to ensure physical safety for you and Tyler during the reveal. I will arrange security for the grand opening. Discreet, but present. That night I lay in bed beside Vanessa. She was reading something on her phone, the screen casting blue light across her face. She looked the same as she had for 30 years. Same profile, same curve of her neck against the pillow. But I saw her differently now. The way you see a car differently after you pop the hood and find the engine has been swapped out. Same body, different machine entirely. She put her phone down, rolled toward me, kissed my shoulder. Sleep well, baby. Big day at the shop tomorrow? Just routine, I said. Same as always. She smiled in the dark. You and your routines. I love that about you. Always so steady. I closed my eyes and let her believe I was falling asleep. Steady. She had no idea how right she was. Steady hands, steady nerves, and a plan that was tightening around them both like a timing chain, with nowhere left to slip. The third recording arrived Thursday evening at 7:42. I was alone in the garage at home, pretending to organize tools while Vanessa watched television in the living room. The notification buzzed in my pocket and I knew immediately what it was. The same tight knot in my stomach that had become as familiar as the weight of a wrench in my hand. I put in my earbuds, pressed play, and heard the worst one yet. Vanessa was laughing. That same cruel, liberated sound I had first heard through the kitchen doorway. You know what the funniest part is, Ray? I deserve an Oscar. 28 years of acting. 28 years of smiling when he walks through the door smelling like an engine block. Of kissing him goodnight with grease still on his neck. Of pretending that his stories about carburetors and transmission rebuilds are interesting. Ray chuckled. You have always been the better actor between us. I went to Hollywood. You stayed here and gave the performance of a lifetime. Every night. Ray. Every single night for 28 years, I climbed into bed with that man and pretended it was not making my skin crawl. His hands. God. His hands. Black under the nails no matter how much he scrubs. Calluses that catch on my clothes, on my skin. I used to shower twice after he touched me. Once was never enough to wash off the feeling. I pulled the earbuds out. Could not listen to another second. My hands were gripping the edge of my workbench so hard the wood was biting into my palms. And I stood there staring at the pegboard wall full of tools, breathing through my nose like an animal trying not to charge. Shower twice. After I touched her. 28 years of that. 28 years of reaching for my wife in the dark and believing she wanted to be reached for. 28 years of thinking that when she leaned into my chest on the porch swing, she was content. That when she said I love you before bed, she meant it. That when she took my hand at church on Sundays, it was because she wanted to hold it. She had been counting those hands against her. Every callus, every stain, every scar earned honestly. Evidence of a life she found repulsive. I forced myself to put the earbuds back in. Forced myself to listen to the rest because Carl needed the full recording and I needed to know what else they were saying. Ray's voice had shifted. Softer now. Almost tender. Soon you will never have to touch those hands again. Costa Rica. The beach house. Just us. No more pretending. 9 more days. Vanessa said. 9 more days, and I am free. We announce the money, get him to sign the trust paperwork. And then I file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. By the time the divorce is processed, the money is already offshore. He gets nothing. Keeps his little shop. Keeps Tyler. They can bond over their engine grease together. What if Tyler finds out about me? About him being mine? Let him find out. I do not care anymore. Once we are gone, none of this matters. Dean can explain it however he wants. Tell Tyler the truth. Lie to him. Whatever. We will be 3,000 miles away living the life I was supposed to have from the beginning. The recording ended. I sat in the garage letting the silence wrap around me. The television murmured from inside the house. I could hear Vanessa laughing at something on her show. A normal sound. A domestic sound. The sound of a woman comfortable in her home, secure in her deception. 9 days. They had a countdown just like I did. The difference was that they were counting down to their escape. I was counting down to their exposure. I deleted nothing. Saved the file. Documented the timestamp. Sent it to Carl with steady hands that betrayed nothing of what was raging underneath. That night, I performed the ritual that had become my nightly torture. Walked inside from the garage. Found Vanessa on the couch in her pajamas. Wine glass half empty on the end table. She smiled up at me. There you are. I thought you were going to sleep in that garage. Just organizing some things for the showroom prep, I said. Coming to bed? We walked upstairs together, brushed our teeth side by side at the double sink. She hummed some song I did not recognize. I watched her in the mirror, this stranger wearing my wife's face, and marveled at how completely she had fooled me. 30 years of looking at this woman across pillows and breakfast tables, and never once seeing what was actually there. She climbed into bed, turned off her lamp, rolled toward me, and placed her hand on my chest. The same hand that had signed away pieces of my business, that had dialed Ray's number 1,000 times in secret, that had touched my brother in ways I could not let myself imagine. "Good night, baby," she whispered. "I love you. Love you too," I said. The words tasted like motor oil gone rancid. But I said them. Because 9 more days of this performance was nothing compared to 28 years of hers. She had trained me well in the art of saying things you do not mean. I was simply a faster learner than she gave me credit for. In the morning, I would wake before her, make coffee, kiss her forehead before heading to the shop. The same routine I had followed for decades, now weaponized into camouflage. She would feel my lips on her skin and think nothing had changed. Would smell the coffee I made and believe her fool husband was still sleepwalking through his predictable life. Every morning that forehead kiss. Every evening that goodnight. Every meal together where I passed her the salt. And she thanked me, and we performed domesticity like 2 actors on a stage. The difference was that I knew the curtain was coming down. She did not. Friday morning, I kissed her forehead at 5:45. She murmured something soft without opening her eyes. I stood over her for a moment, looking down at the woman who had called my hands repulsive, who had showered twice to remove my touch, who had spent nearly 3 decades performing love like a prison sentence. And I felt something I did not expect. Not rage, not grief. Pity. Pity for a woman who had lived beside something real for 30 years and never recognized it, who had mistaken grease stains for worthlessness and calluses for failure, who thought that what a man's hands looked like mattered more than what they had built. I turned away and left for the shop. The morning air in Savannah was already thick with humidity, and the sweet rot of magnolia blossoms past their peak. I rolled down the windows of my truck and let the heat settle on my skin. 8 days now. 8 days until the grand opening. 8 days until the curtain fell, and the audience saw what was really happening backstage. I could wait. I was a mechanic. Patience was the first tool my grandfather ever taught me to use. Saturday morning of the 2nd week, my mother called. Her voice carried something different. A weight I had not heard before. Or maybe I had heard it 100 times and never recognized it for what it was. "Dean, honey, come see me today. I need to talk to you about something. Something I should have said a long time ago." I drove to Isle of Hope around 10. Mama June's house sat at the end of a quiet street, lined with live oaks, so old their branches touched the ground in places. A small yellow cottage with a screened porch overlooking the marsh. She had lived there alone since my father's stroke took him 9 years ago. 82 years old, and still tending her garden, still making biscuits from scratch, still sharp enough to beat anyone at Scrabble. She was waiting on the porch. 2 glasses of sweet tea already sweating on the table between the rocking chairs. She looked smaller than last time, but her eyes were the same, dark and knowing. The same eyes she had used to catch me and Ray in lies when we were boys. I climbed the steps and she hugged me, held on longer than usual. I could feel the tremor in her thin arms. "Sit down, baby. Drink your tea." We rocked in silence for a minute. The marsh stretched golden green in the late morning light. A blue heron stood motionless in the shallows, peaceful in the way only coastal Georgia can be. The kind of peace that makes hard conversations feel possible. Mama June spoke first. Steady, but quiet. "You know already. Do you not?" Not a question. I looked at her and saw it. The guilt. The burden of knowing something terrible and choosing silence. "How long have you known Mama?" She closed her eyes. 5 years. Maybe longer if I am honest about the feelings I had before proof. She opened her eyes and looked straight at me. I was at a restaurant in Hilton Head. Your father and I were celebrating our anniversary. And I saw them. Dean, Vanessa, and Ray. Together at a corner table. The way she was leaning into him. The way he was touching her hand. That was not how a woman sits with her brother-in-law. 5 years. My mother had carried this for 5 years. I told myself I was wrong. That I was an old woman seeing things. That my boys would never do that to each other. The next Christmas when Ray came home, I watched them. Really watched. The way they avoided each other in front of you. Too careful. Too deliberate. Like people who know exactly where the other person is because they are used to being close when nobody is looking. Why did you not tell me? The question came out gentler than I expected. Not accusation. Just exhaustion. Mama June's eyes filled with tears. The first I had seen since my father's funeral, because I was afraid. Afraid of what it would do to you. To Tyler. To our family. I thought silence was protection. She took my hand, her thin fingers papery against my calloused palm. But silence is not protection, Dean. Silence is permission. I know that now. I should have told you years ago. And I am sorry. I am so deeply sorry. I held her hand and watched the heron take flight over the marsh. I was not angry at her. She was 82, terrified of being the match that burned everything down. She chose wrong, but she chose from love. Mama, there is something else. I swallowed. Tyler. They said Tyler might be Ray's. Mama June went still. The rocking chair stopped. And I saw in her face that this was not entirely new information either. She set her glass down carefully. I have wondered, she whispered. Dean, I have looked at that boy since he was small and seen things. The way his chin squares when he is angry. That is not your chin. The way he tilts his head when listening. That is Ray's gesture. Little things a grandmother notices, because grandmother's study faces the way other people study books. She paused. But I told myself it did not matter. Because that boy loves you like a father. And you love him like a son. Whatever happened in a bedroom 25 years ago does not change 24 years of showing up every single day. Blood makes relatives, Dean. It does not make family. You made Tyler your family every morning you chose to be his father. I looked at the wall behind her. A framed photograph of Tyler at 5 years old, sitting on my lap at a 4th of July barbecue, wearing an oversized Callaway & Sons t-shirt, grinning with a gap where his front teeth used to be. I had loved that photo 100 times. Now I studied it differently. The jaw, the tilt of the head, the shape of his ears, and I saw it. For the first time, I saw Ray in my son's face. It hit like a punch to the throat. Not because it changed how I felt, but because it proved the lie had been there all along. Written on his face like a message I refused to read. Mama June watched me. Her old eyes full of sorrow and love. He is yours, Dean. In every way that matters. That boy is yours. Do not let a photograph take that from you. I nodded. Squeezed her hand. Could not speak. When I finally could, I said, I am telling the truth at the grand opening, Mama. Everyone will know. She wiped her eyes. Good. The truth should have come out years ago. And if you need me there, if you need me to stand up and say what I know, I will. I owe you that. I kissed her forehead. Breathed in her face powder and lavender soap. My mother. The one woman who loved me without condition, even when that love made her silent in the wrong moments. I drove home with windows down. Looked in the rear view at my own face. Then thought of Tyler's. And somewhere between Isle of Hope and Ardsley Park, I made a decision I would hold on to no matter what any test ever said. He was my son. I chose him. And I would keep choosing him every day until they put me in the ground. Saturday morning of the second week, my mother called. Her voice carried something different, a weight I had not heard before. Or maybe I had heard it 100 times and never recognized it for what it was. Dean, honey, come see me today. I need to talk to you about something. Something I should have said a long time ago. I drove to Isle of Hope around 10. Mama June's house sat at the end of a quiet street lined with live oaks, so old their branches touched the ground in places. A small yellow cottage with a screened porch overlooking the marsh. She had lived there alone since my father's stroke took him 9 years ago. 82 years old. And still tending her garden. Still making biscuits from scratch. Still sharp enough to beat anyone at Scrabble. She was waiting on the porch. 2 glasses of sweet tea. Already sweating on the table between the rocking chairs. She looked smaller than last time, but her eyes were the same. Dark and knowing. The same eyes she had used to catch me and Ray in lies when we were boys. I climbed the steps and she hugged me. Held on longer than usual. I could feel the tremor in her thin arms. Sit down, baby. Drink your tea. We rocked in silence for a minute. The marsh stretched golden green in the late morning light. A blue heron stood motionless in the shallows. Peaceful in the way only coastal Georgia can be. The kind of peace that makes hard conversations feel possible. Mama June spoke first. Steady but quiet. You know already. Do you not? Not a question. I looked at her and saw it. The guilt. The burden of knowing something terrible and choosing silence. How long have you known, Mama? She closed her eyes. 5 years. Maybe longer. If I am honest about the feelings I had before proof. She opened her eyes and looked straight at me. I was at a restaurant in Hilton Head. Your father and I were celebrating our anniversary. And I saw them, Dean, Vanessa and Ray. Together at a corner table. The way she was leaning into him. The way he was touching her hand. That was not how a woman sits with her brother-in-law. 5 years. My mother had carried this for 5 years. I told myself I was wrong. That I was an old woman seeing things. That my boys would never do that to each other. The next Christmas when Ray came home, I watched them. Really watched. The way they avoided each other in front of you. Too careful. Too deliberate. Like people who know exactly where the other person is because they are used to being close when nobody is looking. Why did you not tell me? The question came out gentler than I expected. Not accusation. Just exhaustion. Mama June's eyes filled with tears. The first I had seen since my father's funeral, because I was afraid. Afraid of what it would do to you. To Tyler. To our family. I thought silence was protection. She took my hand. Her thin fingers papery against my calloused palm. But silence is not protection, Dean. Silence is permission. I know that now. I should have told you years ago. And I am sorry. I am so deeply sorry. I held her hand and watched the heron take flight over the marsh. I was not angry at her. She was 82, terrified of being the match that burned everything down. She chose wrong, but she chose from love. Mama, there is something else. I swallowed. Tyler. They said Tyler might be Ray's. Mama June went still. The rocking chair stopped. And I saw in her face that this was not entirely new information either. She set her glass down carefully. I have wondered, she whispered. Dean, I have looked at that boy since he was small and seen things. The way his chin squares when he is angry. That is not your chin. The way he tilts his head when listening, that is Ray's gesture. Little things a grandmother notices, because grandmother's study faces the way other people study books. She paused. But I told myself it did not matter. Because that boy loves you like a father. And you love him like a son. Whatever happened in a bedroom 25 years ago does not change 24 years of showing up every single day. Blood makes relatives, Dean. It does not make family. You made Tyler your family every morning you chose to be his father. I looked at the wall behind her. A framed photograph of Tyler at 5 years old, sitting on my lap at a 4th of July barbecue, wearing an oversized Callaway & Sons t-shirt, grinning with a gap where his front teeth used to be. I had loved that photo 100 times. Now I studied it differently. The jaw, the tilt of the head, the shape of his ears, and I saw it. For the first time, I saw Ray in my son's face. It hit like a punch to the throat. Not because it changed how I felt, but because it proved the lie had been there all along. Written on his face, like a message I refused to read. Mama June watched me, her old eyes full of sorrow and love. He is yours, Dean. In every way that matters, that boy is yours. Do not let a photograph take that from you. I nodded, squeezed her hand, could not speak. When I finally could, I said, I am telling the truth at the grand opening, Mama. Everyone will know. She wiped her eyes. Good. The truth should have come out years ago. And if you need me there, if you need me to stand up and say what I know, I will. I owe you that. I kissed her forehead, breathed in her face powder and lavender soap. My mother, the one woman who loved me without condition, even when that love made her silent in the wrong moments. I drove home with windows down, looked in the rear view at my own face, then thought of Tyler's. And somewhere between Isle of Hope and Ardsley Park, I made a decision I would hold on to no matter what any test ever said. He was my son. I chose him, and I would keep choosing him every day until they put me in the ground. Ray arrived in Savannah on a Tuesday evening, 6 days before the grand opening. Drove up in a rented Audi convertible, because of course he did. My brother never could show up in anything that did not scream, "Look at me." He pulled into our driveway at 6:30, sunglasses pushed up on his head, wearing a linen shirt that probably cost more than a week of Tyler's pay, looking every bit the successful California man he had always pretended to be. I was in the garage when I heard the car door, wiped my hands on a shop rag, took one breath, and walked out to greet the man who had stolen my wife, possibly fathered my son, forged my signature for $500,000, and was planning to rob me of 50 million more. Ray. I extended my hand. His grip was firm, confident, the handshake of a man who believed he was winning. Brother. He pulled me into a half hug, clapping my back. Good to see you, Dean. The place looks great. He gestured at the house, the yard, the truck in the driveway. You have really kept things up. Keeping things up is what I do, I said. Come inside. Vanessa made her pot roast. The dinner was a masterwork of deception from everyone at the table except 2 people. Tyler and Jolene were the only honest ones in the room. Everyone else was performing. Vanessa played the loving wife and gracious hostess, touching my arm when she passed the potatoes, laughing at my jokes, calling me honey. Ray played the charming brother-in-law, asking Tyler about the Marines, complimenting Jolene on her earrings, telling stories about Los Angeles that were probably half invented, and I played the trusting fool, the simple mechanic who was too busy thinking about engines to notice what was happening under his own roof. But I was not watching the performance. I was watching Ray and Tyler sitting across from each other at my dinner table, studying them the way Mama June had described. And God help me, I saw it. The chin. When Tyler laughed at something Ray said, his jaw squared in exactly the same way. The head tilt. When Ray leaned forward to listen to Jolene talk about her nursing shifts, he tilted slightly left. Tyler did the same thing. I had seen it 1,000 times and called it a quirk. Now I saw it was inheritance. Their hands were different, though. Tyler's were calloused, stained, scarred from the shop. Working hands. My hands. Not by blood, but by choice. By years of teaching and learning side by side, Ray's hands were smooth, manicured. The hands of a man who had never built anything in his life except lies. That difference mattered more than any chin or head tilt ever could. After dinner, Ray leaned back in his chair with his bourbon and brought up the grand opening. So, The big showroom reveal. Saturday. You must be excited, Dean. Years in the making. Decades. I said. 3 generations of Callaways. Finally getting the space we deserve. Ray raised his glass. To family legacy. I raised mine back. To family. Vanessa smiled at both of us from across the table. Her hand found mine and squeezed. So proud of you, baby, she said. Our whole family together for this. It is going to be special. Our whole family. The words sat in my stomach like bad fuel. She meant something entirely different by family than I did. Her version included a secret lover and an escape plan. Mine included a son who did not know the truth and a mother who had stayed silent too long. Ray offered to help with preparations. Said he could handle the sound system, the music, make a playlist. I told him that would be great. Perfect, actually. Let him feel useful. Let him feel included. Let him believe he was setting the stage for his own victory. After dinner, Tyler and Jolene left around 9. Jolene hugged me at the door and whispered, "Thank you for dinner, Mr. Calloway. Tyler is so happy. His uncle is here." I squeezed her shoulder and smiled. She was good for Tyler, steady and warm and real in all the ways that Vanessa was not. Ray left around 10, back to his hotel downtown. He shook my hand at the door, held it a beat longer than necessary. Looked me in the eyes with that easy confidence that had charmed people his entire life. "Dean, I just want you to know, I am proud of what you have built. The shop, this family. You did good, brother." I looked back at him, into eyes that shared my mother's color, but none of her decency. Squeezed his hand. Smiled. "Thank you, Ray. That means more than you know." He walked to his rented Audi. I watched him go. Watched the taillights disappear down the street. And I thought about how easy it is to mistake charm for character. How smooth words and a confident smile can hide absolute emptiness underneath. I was locking up the house when Tyler called. His voice had that slight hesitation he got when something was bothering him, but he was not sure how to say it. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always, son. Uncle Ray." He seems different this time. More interested in us. In the shop. In you. He kept asking me questions about the business tonight. About finances. About how things work. A pause. "Is everything okay?" My chest tightened. Tyler was sharp. Sharper than Vanessa or Ray gave him credit for. The Marines had trained him to read people. To sense danger, even when it wore a friendly face. "Everything is going to be fine, son. I promise you that." "You sure?" "Because something feels off. I cannot explain it. Just a feeling." "I know that feeling," I thought. "I know it better than anyone right now. Trust me, Tyler. After Saturday, everything will make sense. Just focus on work this week and enjoy having your uncle around. Can you do that for me?" "Yeah, Dad." "Okay. I trust you." I hung up and stood in the dark hallway. His words echoing. "I trust you." The same words I had said to Vanessa for 30 years. The same blind faith that had made me vulnerable. But Tyler's trust was different. His was earned, given to a father who had never once let him down. And I would not start now. 6 days. 6 more days of smiling and pretending and playing the fool. Then truth would speak louder than every lie they had ever told. Ray arrived in Savannah on a Tuesday evening, 6 days before the grand opening. Drove up in a rented Audi convertible because of course he did. My brother never could show up in anything that did not scream, "Look at me." He pulled into our driveway at 6:30. Sunglasses pushed up on his head, wearing a linen shirt that probably cost more than a week of Tyler's pay. Looking every bit the successful California man he had always pretended to be, I was in the garage when I heard the car door. Wiped my hands on a shop rag, took one breath, and walked out to greet the man who had stolen my wife, possibly fathered my son, forged my signature for $500,000, and was planning to rob me of $50 million more. Ray. I extended my hand. His grip was firm, confident. The handshake of a man who believed he was winning. Brother. He pulled me into a half hug, clapping my back. Good to see you, Dean. The place looks great. He gestured at the house, the yard, the truck in the driveway. You have really kept things up. Keeping things up is what I do, I said. Come inside. Vanessa made her pot roast. The dinner was a masterwork of deception from everyone at the table except two people. Tyler and Jolene were the only honest ones in the room. Everyone else was performing. Vanessa played the loving wife and gracious hostess, touching my arm when she passed the potatoes, laughing at my jokes, calling me honey. Ray played the charming brother-in-law, asking Tyler about the Marines, complimenting Jolene on her earrings, telling stories about Los Angeles that were probably half invented. And I played the trusting fool. The simple mechanic who was too busy thinking about engines to notice what was happening under his own roof. But I was not watching the performance. I was watching Ray and Tyler sitting across from each other at my dinner table, studying them the way Mama June had described. And God help me, I saw it. The chin. When Tyler laughed at something Ray said, his jaw squared in exactly the same way. The head tilt. When Ray leaned forward to listen to Jolene talk about her nursing shifts, he tilted slightly left. Tyler did the same thing. I had seen it 1,000 times and called it a quirk. Now I saw it was inheritance. Their hands were different though. Tyler's were calloused, stained, scarred from the shop. Working hands. My hands. Not by blood, but by choice. By years of teaching and learning side by side. Ray's hands were smooth. Manicured. The hands of a man who had never built anything in his life except lies. That difference mattered more than any chin or head tilt ever could. After dinner, Ray leaned back in his chair with his bourbon and brought up the grand opening. So, the big showroom reveal. Saturday. You must be excited, Dean. Years in the making. Decades, I said. 3 generations of Callaways. Finally getting the space we deserve. Ray raised his glass. To family legacy. I raised mine back. To family. Vanessa smiled at both of us from across the table. Her hand found mine and squeezed. So proud of you, baby, she said. Our whole family together for this. It is going to be special. Our whole family. The words sat in my stomach like bad fuel. She meant something entirely different by family than I did. Her version included a secret lover and an escape plan. Mine included a son who did not know the truth, and a mother who had stayed silent too long. Ray offered to help with preparations. Said he could handle the sound system, the music, make a playlist. I told him that would be great. Perfect, actually. Let him feel useful. Let him feel included. Let him believe he was setting the stage for his own victory. After dinner, Tyler and Jolene left around 9. Jolene hugged me at the door and whispered, "Thank you for dinner, Mr. Calloway. Tyler is so happy his uncle is here." I squeezed her shoulder and smiled. She was good for Tyler. Steady. And warm. And real. In all the ways that Vanessa was not. Ray left around 10, back to his hotel downtown. He shook my hand at the door, held it a beat longer than necessary. Looked me in the eyes with that easy confidence that had charmed people his entire life. "Dean, I just want you to know, I am proud of what you have built. The shop, this family. You did good, brother." I looked back at him, into eyes that shared my mother's color, but none of her decency. Squeezed his hand. Smiled. "Thank you, Ray. That means more than you know." He walked to his rented Audi. I watched him go. Watched the taillights disappear down the street. And I thought about how easy it is to mistake charm for character. How smooth words and a confident smile can hide absolute emptiness underneath. I was locking up the house when Tyler called. His voice had that slight hesitation he got when something was bothering him, but he was not sure how to say it. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always, son." Uncle Ray. He seems different this time. More interested in us. In the shop. In you. He kept asking me questions about the business tonight. About finances. About how things work. A pause. Is everything okay? My chest tightened. Tyler was sharp. Sharper than Vanessa or Ray gave him credit for. The Marines had trained him to read people, to sense danger even when it wore a friendly face. Everything is going to be fine, son. I promise you that. You sure? Because something feels off. I cannot explain it. Just a feeling. I know that feeling, I thought. I know it better than anyone right now. Trust me, Tyler. After Saturday, everything will make sense. Just focus on work this week and enjoy having your uncle around. Can you do that for me? Yeah, Dad. Okay. I trust you. I hung up and stood in the dark hallway. His words echoing. I trust you. The same words I had said to Vanessa for 30 years. The same blind faith that had made me vulnerable. But Tyler's trust was different. His was earned, given to a father who had never once let him down. And I would not start now. 6 days. 6 more days of smiling and pretending and playing the fool. Then truth would speak louder than every lie they had ever told. I woke Tyler at 4:45 on Sunday morning. 5 days before the grand opening. Knocked on his apartment door above the shop, the small one-bedroom he had taken when he came home from his second deployment because he said he liked being close to the work. Close to me. Though he never said that part out loud. He opened the door squinting, hair flat on one side. Dad? What time is it? Early. Get dressed. We are going fishing. He blinked at me for a second. Then smiled. That half-awake, little boy smile that 20 years of growing up and 2 combat deployments had never quite erased. Give me 5 minutes. We drove to Tybee Island in the dark. My truck rattling over the bridge as the sky turned from black to deep purple to the first thin line of orange at the horizon. Neither of us talked much. The radio played low. Some old station out of Hilton Head. Tyler had his window down, arm resting on the frame, eyes half closed but not sleeping. Just existing in the quiet the way he had learned to do since coming home. His therapist called it mindfulness. I called it being comfortable enough with someone to not need words. We parked at the old fishing pier on the south end. The one where I had first brought Tyler when he was 6 years old. A skinny kid with a Spider-Man rod. And more enthusiasm than patience. He had caught a croaker that day. No bigger than his hand. And screamed like he had landed a marlin. I kept a photo of it in my wallet for years. The pier was empty at 5:15 in the morning. Mist hung low over the water, the salt air thick and cool before the Georgia heat burned it off. We set up our rods without needing to discuss who took which spot. I always fished the left rail. Tyler always took the right. 15 years of the same formation. We cast our lines and let the silence hold. The water moved beneath us, gray and gentle. Pelicans glided low, scanning for breakfast. The sun climbed slow, painting the clouds in shades I did not have names for. Tyler spoke first. Around 6, when the light was gold and the coffee in our thermos was half gone. I am thinking about asking Jolene to move in, he said. He was watching his line, not looking at me. Maybe more than that, eventually. Yeah? Yeah. He reeled in slack, adjusted his rod. She is the first person since I got back who does not make me feel like I have to explain myself. She just gets it. Gets me. Does not push. That sounds like something worth holding on to, I said. Tyler was quiet for a moment. Then, Dad, can I tell you something? About over there? I kept my eyes on the water. Of course, son. There were nights. Bad ones. When we were in Helmand and things got real heavy. And I could not sleep, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw things I could not unsee. He paused. The thing that kept me going was not the flag or duty or any of that stuff they put on posters. It was this. You And me. This pier. The water. Saturday mornings at the shop when you would hand me a wrench and we would just work. No talking, no explaining. Just being next to you and knowing everything was okay. His voice cracked slightly on the last word. He reeled his line in, cast it back out, kept his face toward the horizon. You are the reason I made it through, Dad. I mean that. When everything was dark, I thought about your hands, fixing things, making things right, and I told myself, if I could just get home, back to the shop, back to you, then I would be okay. I could not speak. My throat closed like a fist around everything I wanted to say and everything I could not. This boy, this man, who had gone to war and chosen me as his anchor, who came home broken and trusted me to help him rebuild, who had no idea that the foundation he believed in was about to shake. I set my rod down, turned to face him, put my hand on his shoulder and pulled him into a hug that I held longer than usual, longer than he expected. I could feel him tense for a second, confused, then relax into it. Tyler, listen to me. No matter what happens in the next few days, no matter what you hear or learn about anyone in this family, you are my son. You hear me? You are my son. Always. Nothing changes that. Nothing in this world, or any other. He pulled back, half laughing, confusion on his face. Dad, you are being weird. What is going on? Are you okay? I am fine, I said. Just grateful. Looking at you standing here, turned into this man. I am just grateful, is all. He studied me for a moment. Those eyes. Ray's shape, maybe. But the warmth behind them was something else entirely. Something that came from 24 years of being loved by a man who meant it. Okay, weirdo, he said gently. I love you too. Now shut up and fish before you scare everything away. We fished until 9. Caught nothing worth keeping, but that was never the point. The point was the water and the silence and 2 sets of calloused hands holding rods side by side. The point was the thermos of coffee passed back and forth and the pelicans and the sun climbing high and the complete absence of any lie between us. On the drive home, I watched him in the passenger seat, his hand resting on the window frame, tapping along to the radio. Those hands, calloused, stained at the edges with traces of yesterday's brake job, scarred across the knuckles from a fan belt incident last month. My hands, not by blood, but by teaching, by choosing every day to pass down what I knew, by standing beside him at that workbench since he was 12 years old, guiding his grip, correcting his torque, building him into a mechanic, and a man one lesson at a time. Ray may have given Tyler his chin and his head tilt, but I gave him his hands, and nobody, not Ray, not Vanessa, not a piece of paper from any lab in the world, could ever take that away. 2 a.m. Saturday. The garage was dark except for the glow of my laptop screen casting blue light across the workbench. Tools hung on the pegboard wall like silhouettes, the smell of motor oil and old concrete. My sanctuary for 35 years, the one place in this house that was entirely mine, that Vanessa had never cared to enter because it smelled like work and she wanted no part of that. I sat on the stool where I had rebuilt carburetors and alternators and water pumps for 3 decades, scrolling through evidence files Carl had organized. Recordings, timestamps, financial documents showing the forged loans, the offshore account details from the first recording. Diana, Carl's forensic accountant, had traced the shell companies to a registered agent in Nassau. Everything was documented. Everything was ready. In 12 hours, 80 people would gather at my showroom. In 12 hours, I would press play on a speaker and watch 30 years of lies come crashing down. I closed the laptop, sat in the dark, and let myself think the thought I had been avoiding for 2 weeks. Tyler, in 12 hours, my son would learn that his mother had been sleeping with his uncle for 7 years. that she had spent 3 decades despising the man Tyler admired most, that the woman who kissed his forehead before school and packed his lunch and cried at his graduation had been performing motherhood with the same contempt she performed wifehood, and worst of all, that the uncle he liked and trusted might be his biological father. How do you prepare someone for that? How do you protect a 24-year-old combat veteran with post-traumatic stress from a truth that could shatter what little stability he has rebuilt since coming home? The answer is, you cannot. You can only be there to catch him when he falls. I heard the rumble of a truck outside at 3:15. Headlights swept across the garage wall, then cut off. A door closed. Footsteps on gravel. Then Hank appeared in the side door, carrying 2 large Waffle House coffees and a paper bag that smelled like scattered, smothered, and covered. Could not sleep either, he said. Figured you would be out here. He set the coffee in front of me and lowered himself onto the old milk crate he always sat on when he visited the garage. We ate hash browns in silence for a while. The only sound was the distant hum of the highway and the occasional pop of the building settling in the night heat. You ready? Hank asked finally. I do not know if ready is the right word. I am certain. But ready implies you have made peace with the consequences. I have not made peace with what this does to Tyler. Hank chewed slowly, nodded. That boy is strong, Dean. Stronger than you think. He survived things overseas that would break most men. He will survive this. This is different. This is not an enemy you can see. This is his mother, his family, the people who were supposed to be safe. Hank was quiet for a long moment. Then he set down his coffee and looked at me directly. Let me ask you something. If you do not tell him, if you stay quiet and let them execute their plan, what happens? They drain your money. They disappear. Tyler finds out anyway, eventually. Because lies always surface. And when he does, he also finds out that his father knew and said nothing. That you let them win to protect him from pain. He looked at me hard. How does that sit with you? It did not sit with me at all. That was the thing. Silence was not protection. Mama June had taught me that. He will know who raised him, Hank said. When the dust settles and the shock wears off, Tyler will know exactly who was there for him his whole life. That is not something a recording or a secret or a DNA test can erase. 24 years, Dean. 24 years of showing up. That is what he will remember. I took a long drink of coffee. Let the bitterness settle on my tongue. Hank was right. He usually was about the things that mattered. There is something else, I said. Carl arranged private security for the event. 2 off-duty officers. Discreet. In case Ray reacts badly. Hank's jaw tightened. You think he would get physical? He owes $500,000 to a man who breaks bones for a living. He is desperate and cornered. I am not taking chances. Especially not with Tyler and Jolene in the room. Good. Hank stood, stretched his back. I will be there at noon. Help set up. Keep eyes on the exits. He paused at the door. Dean, yeah, you are doing the right thing. I want you to know that. It does not feel like it right now. But you are. I nodded. Good night, brother. He left. His taillights faded down the street. And I was alone again in the garage, with the smell of oil and the weight of what was coming. I sat there until the first light came, watching it change through the small window above my workbench. Black to gray to pale blue. Then the thinnest edge of gold appearing over the rooftops of Ardsley Park. Dawn in Savannah. The city coming alive. Birds first, then garbage trucks, then the early joggers. The world continuing its routine, completely unaware that today would be the day Dean Calloway stopped pretending and started telling the truth. I stood up from the stool. My back ached from sitting too long. I walked to the utility sink in the corner and washed my hands. Watched the water run clear over my calloused palms. dried them slowly on a clean shop rag. Today I was not going to fix an engine. Today I was not going to rebuild a transmission or diagnose a misfire or replace a worn gasket. Today I was going to dismantle a lie that had been running for 30 years. Strip it down to the frame, expose every corroded part, and then, from whatever was left, build something true. I folded the rag, set it on the bench, walked out of the garage into the morning light. 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon. The Georgia sun hung white and heavy over Abercorn Street, heat shimmering off the fresh asphalt of the new parking lot. The showroom gleamed behind its plate glass windows, 3 classic cars polished to mirror shine inside on display. A 67 Mustang Fastback, a 70 Chevelle SS, and a 57 Bel Air that my grandfather had restored the year before he died. The banner stretched across the front, read Callaway and Sons, serving Savannah. Since 1962. 3 generations of trust. I stood near the entrance watching guests arrive. 80 people. Family, friends, customers, neighbors, fellow business owners from Abercorn and Bull Street, people who had trusted me with their cars for decades, people who knew my handshake and my word, and what both meant in this town. Miguel Reyes came first, my parts supplier for 20 years, bringing his wife and a bottle of bourbon. The Carter family, whose minivan I had kept running for 3 teenagers, learning to drive. Barbara Jean Tillman from the flower shop next door, carrying an arrangement of magnolias and congratulations. Old man Walter Creech, 91 years old, whose 53 Buick Skylark I still service twice a year because he refused to let anyone else touch it. These were my people. The Savannah I had served my entire working life, and they were walking into what they believed was a celebration, with no idea that the ground was about to open beneath their feet. Hank arrived at 12:30, before any guests. We set up the sound system together in the back corner of the showroom. He tested the speakers twice, checked the Bluetooth connection to my phone 3 times, made sure the volume was calibrated loud enough to fill the room but not so loud it would distort the recordings. Professional. Methodical. Like prepping for a timing job that had to be perfect the first time because there was no second attempt. Everything is solid, Hank said, his voice low. Whenever you are ready. I nodded, thanked him without words. Tyler arrived at 1:30. He had dressed up for the occasion. Button-down shirt, clean jeans, his good boots. He walked through the showroom with his chest out and his eyes bright, running his hand along the fender of the Bel Air, adjusting a display sign, making sure every tool rack in the visible workshop area was aligned. He was proud. Genuinely proud. This was his legacy too, and he knew it. Dad, this looks incredible, he said, clapping my shoulder. Grandpa Earl would be losing his mind right now. He would, I said. And your great-grandfather too. Tyler grinned. 3 generations. Going on 4. Right? Right, I said. Going on 4. Jolene arrived with Tyler, wearing a yellow sundress that made her look like a piece of summer itself. She found me in the crowd and hugged me. You have outdone yourself, Mr. Callaway. This is beautiful. I held her an extra beat. Jolene would be important today. She would be Tyler's anchor when the storm hit. I had called her Thursday night, told her only that Tyler might need extra support on Saturday, that something was going to happen, and she needed to stay close to him no matter what. She did not ask questions. Just said, I will be there. Vanessa arrived at 2:15. Fashionably late. She stepped out of her car in a white linen dress, oversized sunglasses, gold jewelry catching the sunlight. She looked like a woman who belonged on a magazine cover, not at a mechanic's grand opening. But that was the point, I realized. She had always been performing a role slightly above the life she actually lived. Always reaching for something shinier than what I could give her with grease-stained hands. She kissed my cheek at the entrance. Lingered. Let people see us together. Dean, darling, this is wonderful. You have worked so hard for this. Thank you, sweetheart. I'm glad you could make it. The irony tasted like ash. Ray appeared at 2:30. Fresh haircut, new shirt, that California confidence, radiating like cologne. He worked the crowd immediately, shaking hands, introducing himself as Dean's brother from out west. People liked him. They always liked Ray. That was his gift. And his weapon. He found me by the beverage table, grabbed a sweet tea, raised it in my direction. Brother, this place is worth a fortune. He gestured at the showroom, the new lifts visible through the workshop windows, the property. You have really built something here. You have no idea, I said. He laughed, thinking I meant the building. He had no idea I meant something else entirely. The party filled out between 2 and 3. Barbecue from Sweet Betsy's on Broughton Street. Cold beer and sweet tea. Country music from the speakers Hank had wired. Children ran between the classic cars while their parents told them not to touch. Laughter and conversation bounced off the showroom's high ceilings. Everything was perfect. Exactly the celebration I had planned. Except underneath it all, my phone sat heavy in my pocket, loaded with 3 recordings that would end several lives, as everyone in this room knew them. 3:15. I caught Hank's eye across the showroom. He was leaning against the wall near the speaker system, arms folded, watching everything with the quiet vigilance of a man who knew what was coming. I gave him a single nod. He returned it. I saw Jolene shift closer to Tyler, her hand finding his arm casually. Naturally, like she was just being affectionate. But I saw her eyes flick toward me, and I knew she was ready. I saw the 2 off-duty officers Carl had arranged, positioned near the exits, plain clothes, looking like guests, but alert. I saw Mama June sitting in a folding chair near the front, her purse in her lap, her old eyes watching Ray and Vanessa with a steadiness that told me she had been waiting for this moment longer than I had. I saw Vanessa laughing with Barbara Jean, touching her hair, performing ease. I saw Ray standing with Tyler, one hand on my son's shoulder, telling some story that made Tyler smile. His hand on my son. It was time. I walked toward the microphone that Hank had set up on a small platform near the front window. Each step felt deliberate, final. Like walking toward something you cannot walk back from. The crowd had not noticed me yet. They were happy, eating, talking, celebrating. 80 people about to have their Saturday afternoon changed forever. I reached the microphone, tapped it once. The sound cut through the laughter, and conversations began to fade. Faces turned toward me, smiling, expectant. And somewhere in the back of the room, Hank's finger hovered over the speaker control. Waiting. 80 faces looked up at me, smiling, happy, holding plates of barbecue and cups of sweet tea. The late afternoon sun slanted through the showroom windows, catching dust motes in the air like tiny witnesses. My hands rested on either side of the microphone stand. Steady, calloused, stained. The hands of a mechanic about to do something no wrench could accomplish. I want to thank everyone for being here today, I began. My voice was calm, measured. The voice I used when explaining a complicated repair to a customer who needed to understand what was wrong before I could fix it. This showroom has been a dream of mine for 15 years. And standing here, looking at all of you, I realized that Callaway & Sons has never been about the building. It has been about the people, the families who trusted us with their cars, the community that kept us going through recessions and storms and everything in between. Applause, nods, smiles. Walter Creech raised his sweet tea from his folding chair. Barbara Jean wiped her eyes. 3 generations, I continued. My grandfather Earl started this shop with borrowed money and borrowed tools. My father Dale kept it alive through hard times, and I have spent 35 years trying to honor what they built. With these hands, I held them up, grease-stained, scarred, calloused. These imperfect, working hands. More applause. Tyler was beaming near the front, Jolene tucked close beside him. He looked so proud. so full of love for his father, and the legacy he believed he was inheriting. That look nearly broke my resolve. But today is not just about the shop, I said. Today I have another announcement. Something that is going to change our family's future. I paused. Let the anticipation build. Saw Vanessa lean forward slightly, her eyes brightening. Saw Ray straighten his posture, the tiniest smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. They thought this was it. Their moment, the beginning of the payout they had been waiting years for. 2 weeks ago, I bought a scratch-off ticket at Parker's on Victory Drive. I did not think much of it at the time, but that ticket turned out to be worth $50 million. The gasp that went through the room was audible. Genuine shock on every face. Someone dropped a plate. Miguel Reyes said something in Spanish that his wife immediately shushed. Barbara Jean grabbed the arm of the person next to her. Old Walter sat forward in his chair so fast I thought he might tip over. 50 million. I repeated. I have already claimed it. It is real. It is verified. And it is mine. The room erupted. Cheering. Clapping. People turning to each other in disbelief. Tyler's mouth was open, his eyes wide. He looked at me like I had just pulled a rabbit from a hat the size of the Grand Canyon. Dad. He mouthed the word more than said it. Are you serious? I nodded at him. Dead serious, son. Vanessa was moving through the crowd toward me. Her face arranged in perfect shocked joy. Tears forming on cue. She reached me, wrapped her arms around my neck, in front of everyone. Oh, Dean. Oh my God. This is incredible. You deserve this. You deserve every penny. I let her hug me. Let her perform. One last time. My plan, I said into the microphone when the noise settled, was to share this money with my family. Set up trusts for Tyler and his future. Help my brother Ray get his business off the ground. Give Vanessa the retirement she has earned after 30 years of standing by me. Vanessa squeezed my hand. Her eyes glistened. So generous, she said. Loud enough for people near us to hear. Always thinking of others. Ray had moved closer. His face was open, grateful, humble, the perfect performance. Brother, he said, I do not know what to say. Thank you. This means the world. I looked at them. My wife. My brother. Standing before me, in a room full of people who believed they were witnessing a generous man sharing his good fortune with a loving family. Nobody in that room knew what I knew. Nobody had heard what I had heard. Nobody understood that these two people, these smiling, grateful, loving performers, had spent years calculating how to steal everything I had, including my son. Not yet. I was going to do all of that, I said, past tense. The words landed like a stone dropped into still water. The room shifted. Smiles faltered. Vanessa's hand on mine went still. I was going to announce the money and share it with the people I love most. I continued. But then I discovered something. Something that changed everything. Something that the people in this room deserve to know. Because this community has been built on trust, and trust does not survive in darkness. The showroom went silent. Completely silent. Even the children had stopped moving, sensing the change in atmosphere the way animals sense a coming storm. Vanessa's hand dropped from mine. I saw her eyes dart toward Ray. Just a flicker, but I caught it. Ray's smile was gone, replaced by something tighter, watchful. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the Bluetooth speaker. Small, black, unremarkable, holding enough truth to level everything in this room. 2 weeks ago, I installed cameras in this building, in the back office where my wife does bookkeeping. I did this because I had reason to believe that people I trusted were planning to steal from me. What you are about to hear are recordings made in this shop, real conversations, real voices, real words, spoken by people who thought no one was listening. I connected the speaker to my phone, looked at Hank. He nodded once, looked at Jolene. Her arm was already around Tyler. Looked at Mama June. Her chin was up. Ready. Looked at Vanessa. The color was draining from her face like oil from a cracked pan. Looked at Ray. His jaw was tight. His eyes were calculating exits. I pressed play. The speakers crackled once. Then Vanessa's voice filled the showroom. Crystal clear. Unmistakable. Cold. That grease monkey thinks fixing cars makes him a man. Drain him dry. Then we disappear. The room stopped breathing. 80 people frozen in place, plates in hands, drinks halfway to mouths. Conversations dead mid-sentence. Vanessa's voice continued from the speakers, filling the showroom the way exhaust fills a closed garage. Suffocating. Inescapable. Ray's voice answered her through the speakers. Baby. We are so close. 2 more weeks and we are free. Costa Rica. Just like we planned. Heads turned. Eyes found Ray standing near the beverage table. His face had gone the color of old putty. The charm vanished, like someone had flipped a switch. The recording kept playing. Vanessa again. 7 years I have been waiting for this, Ray. 7 years of pretending. Barbara Jean's hand flew to her mouth. Miguel Reyes set down his plate slowly, deliberately, the way a man does when he needs his hands free. The Carter family pulled their children closer. I let the second recording play. Ray's voice, scared now, the bravado gone. I owe money. Serious money. To a man named Big Vic, out of Jacksonville. 500,000. His people do not send lawyers. They break things. Legs. Arms. Worse. A murmur swept through the crowd. Understanding dawning. This was not just adultery. This was conspiracy. Theft. Danger that had been lurking in their community, wearing a charming smile and a California tan. The third recording. The one that had gutted me alone in my garage. Vanessa's voice. Bright and cruel. 28 years of acting. I deserve an Oscar. His greasy hands on me every night. I used to shower twice after he touched me. The sound that came from the crowd was collective. A groan of disgust and disbelief. I saw 3 of my mechanics, big men with working hands like mine, shift their weight toward Ray. Their jaws were set. Their fists were closing. I stopped the recording. The silence that followed was absolute. Pink afternoon light streamed through the windows, onto faces frozen in shock, anger, grief. Vanessa moved first. She stepped forward, hands raised, voice high and desperate. This is taken out of context. Dean, you are twisting everything. I would never. I have always loved you. This is some kind of misunderstanding. She turned to the crowd, searching for allies. You all know me. You know our family. He is confused. He is angry about something, and he is making this up. Nobody moved toward her. Nobody offered comfort. 80 pairs of eyes looked at her with the same expression. The way you look at someone you thought you knew, and suddenly do not recognize at all. Then Mama June stood up from her folding chair. Slowly. With the deliberate effort of an 82-year-old woman who had decided that silence was no longer an option. It is not out of context, Vanessa. Mama June's voice was clear and steady. It carried across the showroom with the authority of age and truth. I saw you 5 years ago, in Hilton Head, with Ray. The way you were with him was not how a daughter-in-law sits with her brother-in-law. I have stayed quiet too long. But not anymore. Vanessa's performance crumbled. The mask fell away, and something ugly surfaced. She turned on Mama June with venom. You nosy old woman. You do not know anything. I know enough, Mama June said, unmoved. I know what I saw, and I know what my son heard. And this room full of people who trusted you deserves the truth. Ray made his move then. Tried to slip sideways toward the exit. Casual. Like he was just stepping outside for air. But Hank was there. And behind Hank, two of my mechanics, broad-shouldered men who had known me for decades and were watching Ray with the look of men who fix things with their hands and know how to break them too. "Going somewhere, Raymond?" Hank said. His voice was quiet. "Dangerous." Ray stopped, looked around, saw the two off-duty officers near the other exit, saw the wall of bodies between him and freedom. His confidence was gone entirely now, replaced by the cornered animal Carl had warned me about. "This is insane," Ray said. His voice was higher than usual. "Dean, brother, come on. We can talk about this. Whatever you heard, you are misunderstanding." I left the microphone, walked toward him slowly. The crowd parted for me. I stopped 3 feet from my brother, looked into his face. The face that Mama June saw in my son. The face that I would see in Tyler's features for the rest of my life. "Misunderstanding," I repeated. 7 years with my wife. 500,000 forged in my name. And my son. You were going to steal my money and let my son grow up never knowing the truth. Ray's mouth opened and closed. No words came. It was Tyler's voice that broke through everything. From somewhere behind me, small and hollow in a way, I had never heard from him before. Not even when he came home from war. "Dad." I turned. Tyler was standing in the middle of the showroom. Jolene had her arm around him, holding him upright. His face was white, completely white. His eyes were moving between me and Ray, seeing for the first time what Mama June and I had already seen: the chin, the head tilt, the resemblance that had been hiding in plain sight for 24 years. "Dad, what did he mean?" Tyler's voice cracked. "His real father. What does that mean?" The room went silent again. A different silence this time. Deeper, heavier. The silence of a secret that had been buried for a quarter century, finally clawing its way to the surface. I looked at my son, at his white face and his shaking hands. Hands that were calloused and scarred like mine. Hands I had built with years of patient teaching. Hands that belonged to a Callaway regardless of what any blood test said. "Tyler," I said. His name was all I could manage for a moment. Vanessa tried to speak. "Tyler, sweetheart, it is not what you think. Do not talk to him," I said. And my voice was harder than I intended. "You have lost that right." Tyler was looking only at me. Waiting. Needing. The same look he had given me when he was 6 years old and fell off his bike for the first time. The look that said, "Fix it, Dad. Make it okay. Come with me, son," I said gently. "We need to talk. Just us." Jolene guided Tyler forward. His legs were stiff, mechanical. He walked past Ray without looking at him. Past Vanessa, without acknowledging her. He walked to me, and I put my arm around his shoulders, and we moved together toward the back office. Behind us, I heard Hank's voice address the crowd. "I think the party is over, folks. Thank you for coming. The Callaway family appreciates your support." And behind that, barely audible, Vanessa screaming something about her rights and her lawyer and how I would regret this. I did not turn around. I had already given her 30 years. She would not get another second. The back office smelled like paper and ink and the faint ghost of motor oil that permeated every room in this building. I closed the door. The noise from the showroom, the murmuring crowd, Vanessa's distant voice, Hank managing the exodus, all of it muffled to a low hum, like being underwater. Tyler stood in the middle of the small room. His hands were at his sides, opening and closing. A nervous habit he had come home with from deployment. Something his therapist said was his body trying to self-regulate when his mind could not. He looked at me. His face was so young in that moment. Not 24. Not a Marine who had survived 2 combat tours. He looked like the boy who fell off his bike at 6 years old. The boy who came to me with every broken thing in his life, trusting that I could fix it. Tell me, he said. His voice was barely a whisper. Tell me what he meant. I pulled 2 chairs from behind the desk, sat in one, gestured to the other. Tyler did not sit. He stood there vibrating with something between terror and rage. Tyler, please sit down. He sat. His knee bounced. His hands gripped the armrests. I took a breath. There was no gentle way to do this. No tool that could make this cut clean. What you heard out there, about Ray being your real father, it might be true. I found out 2 weeks ago, the same day I heard the recordings. Your mother said it to Ray, during one of their conversations, that you are his biologically, not mine. Tyler stared at me. His eyes were wet, but the tears were not falling. They were trapped, held back by something harder. Disbelief, maybe, or the refusal to let this break him in front of me. We do not know for certain, I continued. We would need a DNA test to confirm. But Tyler, I need you to hear what I am about to say, and I need you to really hear it. He did not blink, did not move, just waited. It does not matter. Whatever a test says, it does not change one single thing between us. Not one moment of the last 24 years. Not one lesson at this workbench. Not one fishing trip. Not one night I sat with you in the dark when you could not sleep. I am your father. I chose to be your father every single day since the morning you were born. And DNA is just code, Tyler. It is just a sequence of chemicals. It is not love. It is not presence. It is not 24 years of showing up. Tyler's face crumpled. Not slowly. All at once. Like a dam giving way under pressure, it was never designed to hold. He stood up so fast, the chair scraped backward across the concrete floor. His fist hit the wall before I could move. Once. Hard. The drywall cracked and his knuckles split, and blood appeared on the white surface. He hit it again. And again. 3 times total before I was on my feet with my arms around him, pinning his arms to his sides the way I had done when he was 8, and threw tantrums, holding him through the storm until it passed. Am I even a Calloway? He was shouting it into my shoulder, his voice wrecked. Am I even real? Was any of it real? 24 years, Dad. 24 years. And she knew. She knew the whole time, and she let you raise me, and she was laughing at you. At us. You are a Calloway. I said into his hair. You are the most real thing in my life. You hear me? You are my son. He broke then. The sobs came from somewhere deep and primal. The kind of grief that combat had not touched because combat was an external enemy. This was internal. This was the foundation cracking beneath the only identity he had ever known. I held him. Did not let go. Did not speak. Just held him the way I had when he was small enough to fit entirely in my arms. He was bigger now, taller than me, broader through the shoulders. But in that moment, he was small again, and I was his father, the only one that mattered. Minutes passed. The sobs slowed. His breathing steadied against my shoulder. When he finally pulled back, his face was swollen and wet. His right hand was bleeding from the knuckles. He looked at the blood, then at the wall, then at me. He was going to steal you from me. Tyler's voice was raw, scraped clean of everything except truth. Not just your money. He was going to take you away. My father, the only one I have ever had. He was going to disappear with Mom and leave me thinking you were just some man she tricked. I know, I said. And she let him. She knew for 24 years. And she let you love me. And she was going to let them take everything from both of us. I know, son. Tyler wiped his face with the back of his bloodied hand, leaving a smear across his cheek. He looked down at his knuckles, flexed his fingers. Then he looked at my hands. Your hands, he said quietly. You gave me your hands. He held his own up next to mine. Same calluses, same grease stains at the edges. Same scars across the knuckles from work that left its mark. He did not give me anything except half a face. But you gave me these. The door opened softly. Jolene stepped in. She took one look at Tyler's face, his bloodied hand, the cracked drywall, and she crossed the room without a word, wrapped her arms around him from behind, pressed her face against his back. He reached down and held her hands where they locked across his chest. The three of us stayed like that in the small back office of Calloway & Sons while the showroom emptied and the late afternoon light shifted through the window. Two men with mechanics' hands and a woman who loved one of them enough to stand in the wreckage without flinching. I looked at my son, at his calloused, bleeding hands being held by the woman who would probably marry him someday, at the tears still drying on his face, at the set of his jaw, which, yes, was shaped like Ray's, but the strength behind it was mine. Earned, taught, chosen. He was my son. Not because of blood, not because of paperwork, or ceremony, or obligation, because of 10,000 mornings handing him a wrench, because of 10,000 nights being there, because love is not a thing you inherit. It is a thing you build, one day at a time, with your hands. And ours were identical. Sunday morning. The showroom was silent. Afternoon light came through the plate glass and fell across the polished floors where 80 people had stood 20 hours ago, holding plates and drinks and believing they were at a celebration. Now the barbecue trays were stacked by the door for pickup. The banner still hung above the entrance. Calloway & Sons, serving Savannah. Since 1962. It meant something different now. Something harder. Something earned twice over. I spent that morning with Carl on the phone. He was already in motion. Divorce filing goes in tomorrow, he said. Adultery. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Breach of prenuptial agreement. Based on the infidelity clause alone, Vanessa forfeits all claims to alimony and marital property. Combined with the recordings and Mama June's sworn testimony, this is airtight. And Ray? Carl paused. I filed the forgery report with the Chatham County DA on Friday. They issued a warrant this morning. Additionally, I took the liberty of having my investigator contact Victor Marinetti's people in Jacksonville. Big Vic, I said. Carl's tone was careful. Let us just say that certain parties in Jacksonville are now aware that Raymond Calloway recently acquired access to significant funds and then failed to repay his obligations. I did not make threats. I simply ensured that accurate information reached the appropriate ears. My brother was now being hunted by the law on one side and a violent bookie on the other. 2 weeks ago, I might have felt something about that. Guilt, maybe. Or the residual pull of brotherhood, but that word meant nothing anymore. Ray had hollowed it out and filled it with betrayal. Ray left Georgia that night. Hank told me later that he saw the rented Audi speeding west on Interstate 16 around midnight. Whether he was running towards something or just away from everything, I did not know and did not care. He was gone. That was enough. Vanessa tried to reach me for 3 days straight. Phone calls I did not answer. Texts I did not read. She showed up at the shop on Tuesday. Mascara streaked, demanding to speak to me. Tyler saw her through the office window and walked to the bay door before I could stop him. Leave, he told her. His voice was flat, empty of everything except finality. Do not come here. Do not call Dad. Do not call me. You are done. Tyler, sweetheart, please. I am your mother. Let me explain. You are nothing, Tyler said. And then he closed the bay door in her face. The restraining order was served Wednesday. Vanessa was prohibited from contacting me, Tyler, or coming within 500 feet of the shop or my home. Carl handled it with the same clinical efficiency he brought to everything. By Thursday, she had left Savannah. Her sister and Macon took her in. Though from what Barbara Jean heard, the arrangement was neither warm nor permanent. 3 weeks after the grand opening, the DNA results arrived. A plain white envelope from the testing lab in Atlanta. I picked it up from the mailbox on a Tuesday afternoon, held it in my hands for a long time before going inside. It weighed almost nothing. A single piece of paper that could confirm what I already knew in my gut, but had not yet faced in scientific certainty. Tyler was at the kitchen table when I came in. He saw the envelope, knew what it was immediately. His jaw tightened. His hand found the edge of the table and gripped. "You want to open it together?" I asked. He nodded once. I sat beside him, tore the envelope, unfolded the single sheet. Read the results. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. The alleged father, Dean Calloway, is excluded as the biological father of the tested individual. There it was. In black and white, clinical and absolute. The confirmation that 24 years of fatherhood had been built on a biological lie. I looked at Tyler. He was staring at the paper, his face unreadable. Then he looked at me. His eyes were clear. No tears this time. No rage. Something calmer. Something that had already processed this possibility and arrived at its own conclusion. I took the paper in both hands, looked at it one more time. Then I tore it in half, and in half again, and again, until it was nothing but confetti on the kitchen table. "This changes nothing," I said. Tyler's jaw unclenched. The smallest exhale left him. Relief. Gratitude. Love. "I know, Dad," he said. "I know." The next day, I drove to Carl's office and signed the paperwork transferring 50% ownership of Calloway and Sons to Tyler Dean Calloway, his full legal name. The name I gave him 24 years ago. The name that meant honest work and calloused hands, and 3 generations of showing up. Carl witnessed the signature, looked at me over his glasses. "You are certain about this?" "Half the business is substantial." "He is my son," I said. "It is his birthright, same as it was mine, from my father." Carl nodded, stamped the documents. It was done. That evening, I found Tyler in the back office at the shop. He had been quiet all day, working on a Ford F-250 with intense focus, not talking much. But when I walked in, I saw what he had done. On the wall above the desk, he had hung a new frame. Inside it, arranged carefully, were the torn pieces of the DNA results, reassembled like a puzzle but clearly destroyed. The tears visible, the paper wrinkled, and beside it, in the same frame, a photograph. Tyler at 8 years old, standing on a milk crate to reach the engine bay of a Chevy pickup. My hands guiding his smaller ones around a socket wrench. Both of us grinning. Both of us covered in grease. Underneath, in Tyler's handwriting on a small card, 2 words. Real proof. I stood there looking at it for a long time. At the destroyed test results and the photograph side by side. Science on one side saying no. 24 years of love on the other saying yes. And Tyler choosing, deliberately and permanently, which one to believe. I put my hand on his shoulder. He put his hand over mine. 2 calloused hands, stained with the same oil, scarred by the same work, built by the same choice, repeated every single day. Calloway and Sons. The sign outside still read the same, but it meant more now than it ever had before. 6 months later, the sound I loved most in this world was the ratchet of a socket wrench echoing through the shop at 7 in the morning. Tyler's laugh following it. Then Jolene's voice from the office doorway asking if anyone wanted coffee. And Hank's gruff answer that he had been awake since 5 and was already on his 3rd cup. The showroom was busier than it had ever been. Word had spread through Savannah, the way things do in a southern city, built on stories and reputation. People came not just because we were good mechanics, though we were. They came because they had heard what happened and wanted to give their business to a man who stood for something. Customers I had never seen before drove across town past 3 other shops because they wanted Calloway and Sons on their receipt. Tyler ran the day-to-day operations now. 24 years old and managing a shop that grossed more in 6 months than it had in the previous 2 years combined. He had a gift for it. Not just the mechanical work, which he was excellent at, but the people. The way he listened to a customer describe a noise their car was making. The way he called them back personally when the work was done. Mama June said he got that from me. I think he built it himself. Jolene was 4 months along, showing just enough that Tyler kept one hand near her whenever they were in the same room, like he was afraid she might tip over. She still worked her nursing shifts at Memorial 3 days a week, but had started cutting back. They had moved into a house on East 52nd Street, nothing fancy. 3 bedrooms and a yard with a magnolia tree. I helped Tyler replace the porch railing the week after they moved in. Our hands working side by side the way they always had. Hank came by the shop every day. Not because he had to. He had technically retired 2 years ago. But he showed up at 7, drank his coffee, handed Tyler tools, told stories about my father. He was family in the way that mattered, the way that had nothing to do with last names or blood tests. The $50 million sat in trusts and investments that Carl managed with the same precision he brought to everything. $20 million in an irrevocable trust for Tyler's daughter, accessible when she turned 25. $15 million distributed to local charities, the trade school on Waters Avenue, the Veterans Center where Tyler still attended group on Thursdays, and the Savannah Youth Mechanics program I started in the spring for kids who needed somewhere to put their hands. The rest was split between operating capital for the shop, my retirement, and a college fund for whatever grandchildren came next. We did not live large. The house on Ardsley Park was too big for one man, so I sold it and bought a cottage on Wilmington Island. Small, quiet. A dock where I fished on Sunday mornings. Tyler and Jolene came for dinner twice a week. Hank on Fridays. Mama June on Sundays after church. The table was always full, just with different people than I had imagined 30 years ago. Better people. Honest people. People who showed up because they wanted to, not because they were performing. Vanessa was somewhere in New Mexico. Last I heard through Barbara Jean, who heard through a cousin of a friend. I did not ask for details, did not want them. She had signed the papers, taken nothing, and disappeared the way people do when they have burned every bridge behind them. I hoped she found whatever it was she had been looking for all those years, but I no longer needed to know. Ray was gone more completely. No forwarding address. No phone number. Whether Big Vic's people found him or whether he outran them, I could not say. Some nights I wondered, but the wondering had lost its weight. He was a stranger now, had been one for longer than I realized. On a Thursday evening in October, 6 months and 1 week after the grand opening that ended everything and started everything, I sat on my dock with Tyler beside me. Jolene was inside making sweet tea. Hank was on his way with catfish he had caught that morning. The sun was dropping toward the marsh, painting the sky in colors that did not have names. Tyler had his hand resting on the dock rail. Calloused. Stained at the edges. A fresh cut across his left thumb from a fan belt that afternoon. My hands. Our hands. Dad, he said. I want to name her June. After Mama June. Middle name. Grace. June Grace Calloway, I said. That is a beautiful name. He was quiet for a moment. Then, she is going to grow up knowing what family really means. Not the word. The real thing. The showing up kind. The choosing kind. I nodded. And greasy hands. Do not forget greasy hands. He laughed. The sound carried across the water. Scared a heron into flight. And greasy hands, he agreed. 4 generations of them now. We sat there watching the sun go down. 2 mechanics at the end of a long day. Father and son, by every measure that God had ever intended to matter. I think about that often now. About what God intends versus what we plan. I believe He allows truth to surface when we are strong enough to carry it. He did not remove the pain from my path. He did not make the betrayal hurt less, or the nights shorter, or the doubt quieter. But He gave me clarity when I needed it most. Gave me Hank at 3 in the morning with Waffle House coffee. Gave me Mama June's courage when she finally chose truth over comfort. Gave me Tyler's hands reaching back for mine in the darkest moment of both our lives. God does not promise easy lives. He promises that what is built on truth will stand, and what is built on lies will eventually, inevitably, fall. I watched it fall, and then, by His grace, I built something better in its place. If you are listening to this, and something feels familiar, let me say plainly what took me 30 years to learn. Do not confuse patience with blindness. Do not mistake silence for peace. Do not let loyalty to a person override your loyalty to the truth. And do not ever believe that what your hands look like matters more than what they have built. The people who matter will love your calloused hands. The people who do not were never really yours. A man is not measured by what is done to him. He is measured by what he builds after. And building after requires something harder than revenge. It requires choosing the truth, even when the lie was more comfortable. It requires loving someone enough to let them see you broken. It requires believing, with everything you have, that God honors what is real over what is merely impressive. My hands have built engines and raised a son and held a granddaughter who is not yet born, but already more loved than she will ever comprehend. These scarred, calloused, grease-stained hands, they are the best thing about me. Always have been. And if my story helps even one person look at their own hands, really look at them, and recognize the value of what they have built, then every moment of pain had purpose. If this story touched your heart, I invite you to leave a comment below. Share what family means to you. Share what your hands have built. Like this video if these words meant something to you, and subscribe to this channel so you never miss a story that reminds you of what matters. Thank you, sincerely, for staying with me until the end. Your hands are enough. They always were.